this session we are going to talk about OCI Load Balancer. I'm sure most of you have already used OCI Load Balancer in your day-to-day activities. If you are working on legacy environment, load balancer most of the time it is not coming under the purview of database administrators. In case whenever you are troubleshooting something, if you think that the problem might be in the load balancer, you will involve your network group. But unfortunately, you don't have that freedom here when you are supporting the OCI customers, right? So same like storage, load balancer also you have full control if you have access to OCA console, and then you have full control on the load balancer as well. So it is your responsibility to make sure that your load balancer is working fine, or it is configured properly. So in that case, at least we should know the fundamentals of load balancing concepts in OCI. Only then you can confirm or you can identify whether the problem is at the load balancer layer or the problem is at the application middle tier layer. Okay. So having said that, today we are going to see a basics concepts, and also it is important concepts, and if you know these terminologies, I am sure 95% of time you can handle any load balancer related issues in OCI. Okay, easily you can handle. Okay, so as you know very much, we had already gone through this OCI console several times when we talk about various other components. So here, yes, we have to click the networking and the load balancer. So basically, what is load balancer, right? Why do I need load balancer? When you are trying to distribute your load to multiple servers, you are using application, that the application, the respective services, that application respective services are hosting or running on more than one middle tier. Only in that case, your load balancer will give you some benefit. You have only one application tier, and if you are using load balancer, yes, you can configure, but you don't get the real benefit of load balancer. So if you see here, here I have load balancer. Let us say this is a load balancer, and you just forget about this listener and all. Okay, let us consider like you have 3 backend servers. That means your application middle tier services are running on this server, this one, and this one. So you are distributing when the customers are hitting the load balancer. So the load balancer will send that request, forward the request to either this one, this one, or this one. So to distribute the load balancer is required. Easily understandable. Or let us say, for some reason tomorrow this backend server is having some problem. So that time what you can say, you can distribute the work only to this server and here. Your end user, not even hour, you are going through some problem. Of course, if it is a heavily loaded system, they may get into some performance issue. Otherwise, this 2 server itself easily handle that load. They're not even aware of. You are going through some problem in one of the backend server. Okay, so that is the ultimate goal of load balancer, whether it is a legacy load balancer or OCI load balancer or any cloud load balancer. That is the ultimate goal of load balancer. Now in OCI, how you are going to create the load balancer? So when you are trying to create load balancer, when you click create load balancer, you will get one screen like this. So if you by look at this, you can understand that you should know something like backend's listener. Logging is not mandatory, let us not talk about. So at least you should know something like backend listener and some more terminologies. Okay. So before we create the load balancer, so what we will try to understand what is backend. Okay. So backends, where backend is nothing but the actual physical server. Physical server. Okay. It's a host, it's an application host, it's an application middle tier server. Okay, so I am going to create the load balancer that is going to distribute the load to two backends. My application is going to distribute the load to backends. So one of the backend IP address is this one, the other backend IP address is this one. Okay, so the collection of backends are known as backend sets. The collection of backends are known as backend sets. Backend set is the logical entity. It is not the physical entity, it's the logical entity. Okay. If you are coming from Oracle database, table space is a logical entity. Table space contains collection of data files. Data file is a physical entity. In the same way, backend set is the logical entity. It can contain one or more backends. It can contain one or more backends. So, first here you have to create, I am creating one backend set. The name of the backend set, my backend set, traffic distribution policy. In a different policy, for example, when you are weighted round robin, that means when the connection is coming to load balancer, it will follow the round robin method. That means first it will forward the request to the load middle tier 1, next connection it will forward it to middle tier 2, then again middle tier 1, middle tier 2. Like that we have different policies like least loaded. Least loaded means load balancer will always forward the connection to the middle tier which has least connections. Let us not talk about that. So you can choose according to your will. You can choose the load balancer policy. Okay. So first you have to create the backend set. Okay. Then you have to click that add backend. Choose the backend set. Yeah, then click add backend. These are all compute instance you had already created. We already talked about compute instance in our earlier sessions. So this compute instance you had already created, right? So you are just adding them. So now these two backends are part of this backend set. Let me repeat, backend set is the logical entity. It can contain one or more backends. Okay, so you are clear about that. Okay, then now let us talk about listeners. Yeah, let us talk about listener. Again, listener is the logical entity. It's not a physical entity. Listener is the logical entity. Listener will always monitor the connection, incoming connection, which are coming to load balancer. Okay, so listener is a logical entity which is always monitoring your load balancer for any incoming connection. Okay, so the connection can be coming using the port HTTPS port 443, or it can come using HTTP port as well. Okay, so you have to create the listener. Okay, you have to create the listener. Okay, so listener is a logical entity again. It is not the physical entity. It is going to just monitor the load balancer for the incoming connection, and it is listener responsibility on behalf of the load balancer to redirect your connection to the respective backend set. Backend set is nothing but a collection of backends. Correct? Okay, so I'm going to create the listener. Create listener, I will give the listener name. So here I can choose the protocol, either HTTP or HTTPS. HTTP port 80 or HTTPS 443. I'm going to monitor my load balancer for to allow your load balancer to accept ingress traffic, specify the protocol and port for your private IP address. Okay. This host name optional, let us discuss. It is also very, very important. Let us discuss. Okay, so this listener I'm creating under this load balancer, whatever I have created. It is going to monitor any request coming to port 80 or 443. Once it receives the request, what I told, I am going to forward it to the backend set called my backend set. So what I will do here I will choose the select backend, I will choose my backend set. Okay. Now path route set, routing policy, let us discuss later. Okay. These are all optional. Okay. Now this listener, whatever I am creating here, I don't know whether I put the listener here. Yeah, so listener, whatever I am creating here, so app listener, okay, app listener I am going to create. It is going to monitor the protocol HTTPS 443. As soon as it receives, it is going to forward it to apps backend. Let us discuss about this later. Apps backend. Okay. So apps backend is nothing but, okay, let us say this is apps backend. Apps backend is nothing but collection of backends. Okay. So basically what this listener is going to do, whenever it gets the request, it will forward it to this backend. Okay. Either this one or this one. Okay. So listener is a logical entity. It is directly associated with another logical entity called backend set. The backend set is nothing but the physical entity of backends. Okay, very simple, right? So very simple. For the simple application, this is more than enough. Okay. Now let us say I have two applications. Okay, let us say I have one application called OID and I have application called SOA, something like that, or APP1 application and APP2 application. So my requirement here is I don't want to create a separate load balancer for both of these. Okay, I don't want to create separate load balancer. Instead, I want to use the same load balancer, but whenever whenever the connections are coming from APP1, the listener should redirect the connection to the respective backend set. Whenever the connections are coming from APP2, the listener should redirect to the respective backend set. Okay, so you can have one load balancer can have multiple listeners. That is not the issue. So for that, they came up with another concept called host name. Okay, so what you have to do, you have to create one host name. So what is the name of the host? app1.oracle.com. Whether you use SSL, yes, that means the port is 443. Okay. So now when you are creating the listener, so that means what I am trying to say, whenever the connection is coming from app1, I should forward it to a backend set called app1 backend set, which has some set of backends. Whenever the connection is coming from app2, I have to forward it to a different backend set called app2 backend set, which has different backend set. But the load balancer is same. So what you can do, you can create the listener. When you are creating the listener, you can say host name. Here I will choose app1.oracle.com. So for that I am choosing one backend set. So when app2.oracle.com, it is not matching. It will not come into picture. Okay. I will create one more listener. There I will choose app2.oracle.com. Then I will choose the respective backend set. Okay. So what I have achieved, one load balancer, but I can support two different applications, app1 and app2. So that is the role of host name or virtual host name. Okay. Then we already omit something called path route set or routing policy. Both are same, but now Oracle is recommending us to use the routing policy. Both are same. They are going to decom this path route set in May or June somewhere. I don't know the exact date, but they have already announced the date. But the concept is exactly same. Okay, let us say, see, host name I told you have different application, but you want to use the same load balancer. But in the same application, I have different integration. For example, app1.oracle.com, it is hitting Oracle e-business suite. But at the same time, app1.oracle.com/discoverer, it is hitting different application. Altogether, it is hitting different application called discoverer. But both, app1.oracle.com is same, but only /discoverer. So whenever the path contains /discoverer, I want to route it to separate backend set. So for that, you can use path route set or what is the route policy. So far I am using only path route set, but we have to. So I can create path route set app1.oracle.com. So URL string contain app1.oracle.com. The backend set I am going to use apps backend set. But if the URL matches /discoverer, the URL matches /discoverer, it is going to route it to Disco backend. So Disco backend is nothing but it has only the discoverer backends. App backend is nothing but it has only application backend. So using this path route set, so when you are creating the listener, you can say path route set, app1.oracle.com, then choose another one. Path route set contain discoverer, choose another backend set. Okay. So don't get confused between virtual host name and the path route set. Host name altogether different application. You want to use different backend set, you can go for host name. But path route set, same application but different integration. The prefix contains some different discoverer, something like that. Then you can use path route set. Very important, it will help you in your day-to-day operations. Okay. So once you create all these things, you can simply create the load balancer. Just click, you can create. You know the concept now. Now it is very much easy. So load balancer, network load balancer I have never used, so I don't want to talk about that. So load balancer, whether it's a public load balancer or private load balancer, okay, so mostly if you are using, if your application is coming from internet, for example, your e-business suite means BMC application, you will use public load balancer 443 port. So this, if you see, public load balancer is public, this is private load balancer. And when you are creating the load balancer, you have two types of shapes. In a two different ways you can define the shape, flexible shapes. Now Oracle is recommending flexible shape. If you see May 2023 something, they are going to decom the flexible load balancer. So Oracle recommends dynamic load, flexible load balancer. They are going to decom the dynamic load balancer. So flexible load balancer, minimum load, maximum load based on that. So it is very easy. So you can just choose the respective one, then choose the backend set and choose the listener. That's it. Okay, create the load balancer. Just click, click, click. You can create. If you know the concept, what is backend set, what is host name, already you have created, then you click it. But only one thing, if you are creating the HTTPS load balancer, of course you need the certificate, right? SSL certificate. It is same as legacy. You need the SSL certificate. So you have to attach the certificate also when you are creating the certificate resource, load balancer manage certificate name, right? So certificate you have to get it from maybe some customers they are using in-house certificates, or some customers they are getting it from certificate vendors like DigiCert, Sectigo, like that. Okay, so you have to get the certificate and you just need to attach the certificate. For example, your application is app1.oracle.com. You have to get the certificate for app1.oracle.com. There are different ways to procure the certificate. That is altogether a separate topic. You have to create the CSR request and you have to send it to them. They will sign it and they will send it to you. Okay. And another one is in OCI load balancer certificate, and if you are getting it from DigiSend and all, the certificate will expire every 1 year. So you have to, as it is also your administrator responsibility to renew the certificate. So how you will renew the certificate? First you will get the certificate from the DigiSet. Okay, then what you have to do? You have to add the newly certificates, load manage certificate, click add certificate. Okay, now from the for example, you are most of the guys I know procuring from DigiSet and Sectigo. Let us say you have procured the certificate from DigiSet. So you will get the actual SSL certificate, app1.oracle.com, and certificate authority certificate, right? So the root and intermediate certificate for DigiSet. If you are getting it from Sectigo, that root and intermediate certificate from Sectigo, and the private key. Every certificate will have private key that you will get it. Only you will get it. You should not share it with anyone, because if someone gets your certificate and private key, it's a security problem. So just add the certificate here, select everything in your local laptop or desktop, select, okay, and certificate name, add it, save the changes. Okay, so what you have to do, so you have added the certificate, then go to your listener, and listener you have to attach the certificate. That's it. Whatever the certificate you have added in the listener, you just need to attach the certificate. Okay, you just need to, this is a certificate, I just need to attach the certificate in the listener. Okay, so that's all about load balancer. Many times, the problem might be in the load balancer level, so that time you should know where exactly the problem. And one more thing, 443 port or 80 port, whatever it is, you have to open using ingress or egress, everything. Ingress, for example, 443 ingress, and maybe some middle tier and all, you may need to allow egress. For that, I had separate session already. I think I talked about that. So these are all the fundamentals you should know about load balancer. Thank you.